3 or 4. We're in a timeless vortex of just truth and learning now. So I really appreciate you coming. It's an honour for me really to introduce the next speaker. I'd class him as a friend, and we've spent a lot of time together over the last few weeks. As I said, it bears repeating. Several months ago we had Skype chats, and then 3 or 4 weeks ago you got on a plane and left it. Santos left his family and the dog, and came to England and Italy, and he's been to Hull. And, oh yeah, that wasn't listed like that from any reason. It was just a rational sort of working down. But as I said, he's toured all over the country. He's been on trains and on people's settees. And as I said, I'm honoured he's put so much trust and faith in us. And as I said, obliged us with 4 weeks out of his life, really. And yes, he's wasting away, and yes, our food isn't brilliant, and yes, we've probably kept him up too late. And the last 2 nights he's probably going, he said, luxury camping. And you still have to walk to the toilets. But as I said, I'm honoured. I'm not even going to introduce the subject. Santos Bonacci is astro-theology, and the syncretism is really a new way of addressing all our thought processes. And it follows on from the meme of yesterday with John Boyd and HOYBERG'S, and through what Dave was on about this morning, and even Gary Bilcliffe and onwards, that know thyself, and we help to change the world. Be the change you want to see, and all that sort of stuff starts with knowing who you are. So I'm going to introduce him. It's going to be a long session, so grab your pens and relax back into the seats. This is Santos Bonacci. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely. I see some old faces, people that have been to some of the other presentations, and new faces, and here we are at Stonehenge. So, well, nice. It's beautiful. I'm very lucky. I had a tour of the stones with Maria Wheatley and Busty Taylor, and they took me around. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It was beautiful. Of course, Maria is now doing a little tour while I'm speaking, right? And so that was a privilege and an honour. I'm going to have a little bit of a chat about that. I want to spend 20 minutes talking about the tour thus far and the 8 presentations which I've already done. And today you're going to get a special presentation based on the sun. Special in that it hasn't been presented before. So I'm trying to keep the presentations fresh. Thus far there has been no repeats, and I have a few more presentations to do as yet. For instance, I'll be doing a special sovereignty / self-determination presentation when I get to Northern Ireland in early September. But today's subject is the sun. So after 20 or 30 minutes of talking about the tour thus far, we're going to put the sun into perspective. And we're going to see what everyone and anyone has ever said about the sun. And so this beautiful shining orb of light that gives us vitality is going to be put into perspective. So the tour thus far. First talk I gave was at St. Anne's, and there I presented the science behind the science. So we talked a little bit about light, because that's all there is to talk about after all. It's all light. So we spoke about that, and we spoke about the magnetic light, the causal magnetic light, and differentiated it from the electrical light of effects, duality, positive and negative. And that was a presentation in which I featured a bit of the documentary Primifields by David Lapointe. And I think he did a really good job of explaining from a reverse engineering perspective, really, how the universe pretty much how it works. And from the laboratory point of view, so using what Walter Russell would call sense thinking. He's done a pretty good job, and I highlighted some of that documentary, recommend to watch it. And we spoke a lot about Russellian science as well. And that was one presentation. Then we came to, I need some light here, Birmingham, and the first presentation there was the nursery rhymes. So that should be up on YouTube soon. One has already been put up by our brother here. Sorry. Torbs.
Yeah.
Torbs. Thanks, Torbs. Last night, Torbs put up the Glastonbury Zodiac, which was the 8th and the last one I did only a couple of days ago. So he's very quick. So this one should be up soon too, okay? So look for the Stonehenge one. The Glastonbury one is up if you want to have a look at that. And that was quite interesting because I will speak about that in a minute, and how a couple of the gentlemen, i.e. John Wadsworth, anyway, I'll get that right in a minute, and David, who wrote this book, were in the audience, and I'll have a chat about that in a minute. It's beautiful. But you'll see it already on YouTube. So, Birmingham, nursery rhymes. And we showed how the nursery rhymes are all based on alchemy, Kabbalah, mysticism, etc., etc. The science of light, syncretism. And those beautiful little rhymes that we repeat and we wonder, who would have concocted such beautiful wisdom? When were they conceived? And we get lost in the mists of time if we go back far enough. And the answers to these questions are not satisfactory unless we understand that once upon a time everything was syncretic and unified in knowing, not divided in thinking. And so nursery rhymes, amongst all the other types of songwriting, i.e. gospels, tragedies, comedies, operas, whatever you may call them, they all originate with the science of light. And the orbs that follow the ecliptic is the path, the brazen serpent of Moses in the wilderness is the zodiac. The circuit of Galilee that Jesus walks on, Galilee, is the circuit of the zodiac. Strong's Concordance tells you that. And so it's the nursery rhymes are on that ecliptic because it's all the science of light. And this is the theme of the tour, actually. Syncretism, the science of light. So then we went to Bristol. Beautiful. Gorgeous place. Loved it. Bristol, and there we spoke about the ascension and the raising of the chrism. I have already presented this information in YouTube presentations called Secret of Secrets, The Elixir of Life Within, and Your Body is the Holy Land. So I won't elaborate too much on that because I want to get to the subject at hand. That will be available. So how to ascend. The ascension is within. One is a Jew within, not without. The Christ is within, Colossians 1:26. It's the chrism. In the Greek script system, Christos is the oil which is secreted from the claustrum. And that's the oil that descends and then ascends, and then we have illumination. Because, of course, when the prodigal son returns, when Ulysses returns to Penelope, is reinstated in his kingdom, and that oil, once it returns to the third ventricle, the third heaven, it increases its vibration 1,000-fold. Because the Sahasrara chakra is 1,000 petaled lotus. and all the dormant brain cells are reactivated. And this is the process of ascension. It is within, and we discussed this, and that will be up soon, hopefully. Following that, Manchester, the Philosopher's Stone. And we spoke about the alchemical story along the ecliptic. When one commences in Capricorn, the cardinal earth sign, ruled by Saturn and lead, one starts on a journey, starting at the bottom, earth, cardinal earth, lead, and by the time one goes around through the elements, in order, the 12 elements, or sorry, the 4 elements in there, 3 cardinal nodes. So cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable. You come to the 11th sign, Leo, which is the gold. And then that's the fixed fire. The last and the 12th sign is Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, Saint Peter, the pearly gates, from which we ascend through the Tropic of Cancer, which is known as the Gateway of the Gods. And that's the Philosopher's Stone. And that's explained from the Manchester Syncretism of Light presentation. Then we went to Leicester and we did the Holy Days. And what we did was we simply followed the ecliptic. So there you have the Earth, the equator, the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, and of course the ecliptic. And so what we did was we commenced where right ascension of meridian begins in astronomy. Where the Ram, Aries, begins in astrology. Where Abram begins in astro-theology or theology. Where Cerebrum, which I have shown in my many presentations, Ceres is Isis, or Sarah. Brum is Abram. Cerebrum, Aries, ruled by Aries. Taurus is the cerebellum. Cerebrum is Sarah Abram. So you see, you have astronomy, theology, biochemistry, because this is the Ceres, this is the wax that we spoke about before, the oil which comes from the place of cereals. And this is, of course, March, April. And so we begin here our journey. As I said before, with the Philosopher's Stone in Manchester, we began in Capricorn. It's the sheep and the goats. The goat rules the solstice, the solstitial axis. The sheep, the ram, rules what is known to be the ecclesiastical, spiritual axis. Fire and air. Libra is air. The intellectual nature, the spiritual nature. Fire is mystic. This is the masculine, equinoctial, spiritual plane of the cross, the holy cross. And this is the feminine, Capricorn, Cancer, water, earth, emotions, sensual, or body. And this is the kingly axis. Ptolemy, 2nd century astrologer, said this is noted for ecclesiastical. For. Is that me? I think so. known for as the kingly axis, you see. So we begin our journey here or here. The four Gospels, out of the four Gospels in the Bible, two Gospels begin here with a baby Jesus, 25th of December in Capricorn. And Mark is March, or ran backwards, Mars, the ruler of Aries. Mark and John begin with the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Fully grown Jesus, no nativity scenes. So this is the science of gospel writing. What's the gospel? I think I have to turn around for a better sound. There's too much frequency feedback there. What's the gospel? Well, a gospel is two L's? No, one. Is a goat spell. So it comes from the word tragodi, tragodia in Greek. Tragos is the goat, and udi is ode to the goat. Which goat? Capricorn. And so we get the word tragedy. The Renaissance Italians would have called it opera. Is that hard to see, is it?
That is better.
Yeah, you'll have to put it out more, I think, for better. Yeah. And so Dante called it a comedy. But the tragosudi, or the goat spell, gospel, is the science of talking about light along the ecliptic. And so when you have this wave, and Walter Russell said the secret of creation is in the wave, he was referring to this wave of the positive and the negative, the vibration, the electrical light of illusion of the universe, which is the effect, and the cause is the magnetism, the Mother Mary, pure. She's a virgin because it's pure white light. It's not red and blue, which is how Walter Russell explains this, and many other scientists. It's in theology and alchemy. Red is fire, blue is water. Red is masculine, positive. Blue is feminine, negative. Mary, maritime, water. Fire, Jesus, electric. Emmanuel, electricity. And so there's the two lights, you see. There's always the two gods, the prime creator and then Jehovah or Shiva or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Creator, operator, destroyer. Cardinal, fixed, mutable in astrology. And so when you see that wave and you start here at Aries, you can start at Capricorn, but I've chosen to start that particular presentation of the holy days in Aries. Your eyes shall be opened, and you will see that all theologies are based on this. Most of the memorative things that have ever occurred in the Bible have occurred in this sign, the sign of Nisan, Aries. Abraham sacrificed the ram in the thicket. Noah's Ark lands on Mount Ararat on Nisan 17. Jesus Christ resurrects and ascends on Nisan 17. Esther frees the Jews on Nisan 17. Jericho falls at the hand of Joshua, Nisan 17. The Jews eat the first fruits, of course the blossom of Aries, for the first time on Nisan 17. They descend down into Egypt for the 430 years of enslavement on Nisan 17. Moses parts the Red Sea and they walk through the Red Sea on Nisan 17.
All there. Easter happens there. In astrology, that's the exaltation of the sun. I wonder why that would be. Would that have anything to do with the nights are longer here and the days are shorter? And then the moment the sun splits the middle on the 21st of March every year, then the days are longer and the nights are shorter, so therefore the sun exalts. And it's interesting that the sun is Horus, and opposite that sign in Libra is Saturn, Set, where sun sets every day. Sun rises here, sun sets over here. And Set is the exalter of the sign of Libra. That's astrology. And so when you merge and cross the disciplines, with syncretism, you begin to understand what's really going on. Here is theology, here is astrology, here is astro-theology, nursery rhymes, alchemy, biochemistry, astronomy. And that's how Holy Scriptures are made. That's how Gospels are written. And anyway, I'm spending a lot of time on this. I didn't really want to talk about the Manchester one so much, but this was precious for me, this particular one, because it opens your eyes. You begin to see then what Pentecost means over here, mid-May. You begin to see why the sun is transformed on the 6th of August every year. Of course, Jesus is transfigured on the mountain in the middle of Leo in summer where it's hot and the sun is transfigured. You come to here and the Jews celebrate Judgment Day over here. You understand why on the equinox. Here is the harvest moon, here is the hunting moon. You begin to see why, because you hunt in the winter, you harvest in Virgo. Then, of course, as you can, here is Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh meaning the start, the head. And of course, this is the head, the start of the Jewish secular year. Here is the start of the Jewish sacred year, Nisan, Tishri. Aries, Libra, the spiritual axis. Of course, there's going to be tons and tons of religious festivities from all around the world in those beautiful signs. And of course Capricorn, and many over here too. Many of which have to do with the crossing of the Milky Way galaxy in Cancer. For instance, the Japanese on the 7th of July every year celebrate Tanabata, when the Milky Way at 12 o'clock is directly overhead, and Orihime and Hikoboshi, Vega and Altair, the two lovers, 5th brightest star and the 12th brightest star, and the Milky Way separates them. And then only on one day is that alignment. You see, so these 4 cardinal signs are filled with festivities. And you'll see about at least 70 or 80% of the religious festivities are along those, or the fixed, or the cross-quarter days. May Day, Loaf Mass Day, Halloween's, Groundhog's Day. And this is the 8-spoke wheel. And these are the portals of the sun. It is known that when the sun goes through these 8 points, these nodes, this will be like the north node of the moon, and this would be like the south node, where judgment happens. And these are nodal points. And so, and they're portals. And it is known that on the 2 days of equilibrium, these are called candlesticks in theology. And these are the pillars of Hercules. Longest day, shortest day, equal days. And all science is based on this. Okay, I'll proceed. Whoops. Let me proceed with... Then we did gospel writing in Birmingham. There were a few from there. Were you there? No. Okay, I saw a few faces today from there. Anyway, we did gospel writing based on this science and merging and syncretising all of the sciences that are hidden in our gospels. So that was good. By the end of the day, that was a workshop, and by the end of the day, everyone went home with the ingredients for the best songwriting that you could possibly conceive. Yeah, because everything starts in Aries, in cardinal fire, tetragrammaton, tetrahedron.
always there has been that association. The tetragrammaton is the tetrahedron, the fire, the creator. Everything is caused through fire. Everything is generated through fire. The other signs destroy the work of fire. That's the earth. So earth is stabilizing. Fire is generative. Earth is stabilizing. Air is corruptive. And water is destructive. So therefore, this is why the tetrahedron, everything begins at that causal point here. And this is the start of the year, this is the start of the day. 6 a.m, March the 21st. And the body is in here, the human body. I won't go into that today, but the head is here. The cerebrum is the land flowing with milk and honey, because in Aries is the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. The pineal gland secretes the honey, the pituitary gland. Mary, the wife of Joseph, the pineal gland, secretes the milk. And this is the land, this is heaven. Heaven is head. Heaved up. Heel is hell. Head is heaven. So when we ascend the oil, we go to heaven. The ascension is within. There's no guru without that's going to do it for you. And there's no vicarious salvation that will ever occur to do it for you. It's your work. You are the Jesus that needs to be restored to former glory of unconditioned consciousness. And so here also, everything is here at the head when it comes to do with theology. Right in those signs there. Taurus and Aries. And so then we came to Glastonbury and we did the zodiac. That's up. I won't speak about that anymore because that's up. And here we are, and the subject is the sun. Before I proceed to that, I wanted to talk about this particular book, Avebury, which was given to me yesterday by Maria Wheatley and Busty Taylor. Avebury, Sun, Moon and Earth. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the tour that I was given, just to share some gems with you. And another tour I had to York. There's more too, but I think I'll keep it simple. Let's start with this one. I've got so much to share. And everything's sort of contributing to what I've uncovered and what I'm doing. So I want to share a bit of that. First we went to Stonehenge. That was beautiful. And Maria shared so much wisdom, along with Busty, of course, about the stones and how there are myths that these stones move and are alive. And you can see it. You can feel it. So, and Maria was saying how sad it is that people can't be there with those stones responsibly. They would be responsible, of course, if we allow people to be themselves and live in honour, and be close to those stones and get some real spiritual enlightenment from them. Some of those are of sarsen. Is that right? Is that how you call it? Yeah. The hardest, it's second to diamond in hardness, some of those stones. Anyway, that was beautiful. Then we went to Avebury and had a tour there, and the insight of the wisdom that they shared with me was incredible. One in particular, at one point, was when you sit in the Devil's Chair, one of those stones there, what you're supposed to be seeing is the sun setting at midwinter, at the solstice, or at solstice day rather. But they've extended the hill and they've blocked the view of that beautiful sight, and you can see the other solstice from that chair, and that's why the chair is facing there. And that's something I wouldn't have picked up if I had just been walking past and saying, these stones are so nice. So, they've obviously got that knowledge in here. Then we went to West Kennet Longbarrow, and we did some drum work with Nick? No. He came along. Anyway, my apologies, I forget his name, but we did some drum work in those chambers. There's 5 chambers there. Anyone been there? Yeah. It was very interesting. Wonderful experience. What else did we do? We went to Salisbury and I saw the Magna Carta. And where King John signed the Magna Carta, saw the Magna Carta. And my, isn't the Salisbury Cathedral a marvel? I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for the beauty of that cathedral. My best friend in Australia, a great friend of mine in Australia, Gary Tapper, his family comes from Salisbury, and he's always spoken about how beautiful it is. Of course, I've seen pictures of it, but it's breathtaking. And it's also, the spire is actually leaning, and they've restored it with flying buttresses and everything. And when you go inside, you can actually see the granite pillars bending, and they're inclined a couple of degrees. It's very scary, but they've restored it. These cathedrals were monuments, orchestrations in architecture and masonry of just megalithic proportions. Men and women devoted themselves to making light the subject of their adoration through temples, gospels, song. Any love song is a song about light. Love is light. Sound is light. We are light. And it's a beautiful dance of light that we are experiencing. And here we are at Stonehenge. This is definitely one of the most astounding monuments to light. And Maria explained to me in her graph about the 7 rings, or the 7 heavens from Saturn to the moon, and the 7 chakras, etc. She explained that this monument represents Saturn. And immediately I looked at Stonehenge and I said, how many stones go around the ring? And she said 30. That's the number of Saturn. And of course she placed in her graph, so Silbury Hill is Earth, and then we have, I wish I had brought that along actually, I would love to, I didn't expect to be explaining this, but so we've got Silbury Hill is Earth, and then Stonehenge with its 30 perimeter stones is Saturn. And then in the middle here is Marden. Don means hill, hill of Mars. Jupiter's ring is, it's all measured to sort of the proportions, proper proportions, and these monuments are actually showing the solar system here in the Avebury area. So I'll get back to that. I'll perhaps tomorrow I'll remember. I'll bring the graph with me. Just before I proceed, also the Glastonbury Grail by the Naughty Gnome. David is his name, and he presented me this book too. And interesting that when I presented the Glastonbury Zodiac, you'll see it on the presentation that both John Wadsworth, I hope I haven't got that wrong, my apologies if I have, and David both, I asked them to come to the front and spoke a little bit about their products. So that was real synchronous, and yeah, that's the kind of universe we live in. Because as consciousness grows, we are aware of more. That's what consciousness is, knowing. Ignorance is the opposite. And so these are the beautiful things that are happening. I find them beautiful. I find them just absolutely wonderful. To have, you know, John was shocked. He actually put his hand up to correct something that I was saying in the presentation. He said, well, I actually wrote the article that you're reading from. It's because I sourced it from the internet. There's 3 beautiful articles about Aries, Taurus and Pisces and how you find all these things in the Glastonbury Zodiac. For instance, Clark Shoes, biggest manufacturer of shoes, in the Pisces side of High Street, and over the road you've got all the wool shops in the Aries. And that's just a snippet of the things that we spoke about. Yeah. And he was there, and he was slightly embarrassed, and so was I. But this is the sort of stuff that's happening, you know. Anyway, I just want to add a little bit about York. Scott, are you here, Scott? Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Scott and Kirsty. Well, Scott took me to York, and wow, what we learned there. I went to the York Minster, the largest in north of the Alps. And, of course, Salisbury, which I saw 2 days ago, is the largest spire in England. And what a wealth of information Scott had to share, and I'm glad. And that was another synchronous thing, and I just see it as written in the script anyway. I'm just following along. I could spend hours and tell you some of the most amazing things that have happened since I landed at Rome on the 20th of July. It's been an amazing tour. And but this is some of the things that I learned. I always knew that York was interesting because you get New York, Masters of the Stock Exchange, from York in Yorkshire, and you get the York Rite. And this is the big one, along with the Scottish Rite. And I learned this from Leo Zagami, who is a relative of Queen Elizabeth. And he's speaking out about the Masonic world and Zionism and the banks and the Vatican and all of these corrupt entities. And he's speaking out. And he's a Beauce Leon. Have I said that wrong? Queen Elizabeth is a Beauce Leon. We know that, don't we? Beauce.
More like Bose.
Bose. I thought I said it wrong. Thank you. Bose Leon? Lion. Excuse me. Okay, so, and he's a relative, you see, he's bloodline, and he's speaking out. And you might want to see that interview of Leo Zagami, because he exposes how powerful York really is. And when you go outside the Minster and you see the statue of Constantine, and he's sitting on his couch, on his divan like this, you know, with such an arrogant... the plaque there at the bottom says, Constantine enthroned himself as Emperor of Rome in York, and then moved on down to Rome and initiated the corporate Ponzi scheme of the donation of Constantine and Peter's Pence and the corporation of the Vatican, or the Catholic Church, and taxes and in the name of Jesus Christ. So the arrogance, you know. And you see, down the road from York Minster is the church where George Bush's Plantagenet relatives are buried in. And so this is a powerful lay that these churches are built on, you see, and the York Minster has the head of this family. It's just telling you that the family still rules the show. They're still in possession from those times. And Constantine, of course, was, some sort of a character. And of course you have Helen there, St. Helens Square in York, in the town. And it's interesting how you have a lot of associations. Scott pointed out that York backwards is Croy, or Troy. And of course you had the two, you had the Brigantes and you had the Parisis. Paris. You've got St. Helens Square, you've got Constantine, who is just another replica of the conquering, who was it, Achilles, I guess, or whoever. It's always the same one archetype, one hero. But you see this, you see, and Scott, you could probably add a few more of the analogies that you spoke about there. What else? I mean, it's all the same thing. The heart. There's the heart in the middle of the two rivers, the Foss and the Ouse. Yeah, Foss is light, Ouse is gold, light and gold, and they meet in the heart, and there's the Minster in there. It's the shape of a heart.
And so the York Rite is here. This is a powerful, powerful centre. Just as Glastonbury and Avebury and all of this area is. There's two centres. And here we have the Constantine Plantagenets, and you've got, remember the War of the Roses and all of that history, that's still all there. And next to here you see King Henry VIII destroyed the Abbey, and that's still standing. There's a lot to be learned about this city, folks, in the whole scheme of things. So that was very, very enlightening. Now, to the subject at hand, all the forms that we see, the seeds are planted in the heart of the sun, in the centre of the sun, and everything we see is emanating from there. The causal light from the centre of the sun. Eric Dollard, you can see his videos on YouTube. Eric Dollard explains, he studied the sun most of his life, and he explains out of the back of his car in Arizona in the desert, in his interview, how the sun is empty. It's cold. There's no fusion going on in the core of the sun. It's empty. Sunspots reveal that the sun is empty inside. There's only the outside skin. And arcing in fusion only occurs in the corona of the sun, in the outside of the sun, not in the core of the sun. There's no fusion. And it is a converter. He calls it a converter or a transformer. And it transforms, in the words of Eric Dollard, transforms primary force into secondary force. I would like to just change one of those words if I could, and I would say, in harmony with Walter Russell's beautiful teachings, if I could correct someone with the great knowledge, a physicist, and a great genius like Eric Dollard, which I'm not attempting to correct him, but it's obvious to me that what he's saying is the sun is a converter from prime, he says force, I would say power, that's just what I would say, into secondary force. Walter Russell would say there is only one force that God uses, i.e. God would be conscious, white, causal, undivided, still, all-knowing light, where omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence and immortality exist. Where we exist, in the imperium, our true nature. And so, yes, the sun is a converter. You see, he explains that you cannot see the sun in outer space, in free space. We cannot see the sun. So we need a body, a mass, like the Earth and the atmosphere, you see? And so then we can see the sun. So really he says there's no light and there's no travelling of light. And in stars he says the light that we see from stars could be just seconds old. Not necessarily millions. It could be seconds old. And remember, of course, we remember the words of, who was it that said, was it Nietzsche that said, as long as we continue to conceive of the stars outside of us,
we won't see the ones within or understand.
We won't see the ones within. Yeah, words to those effect. It's Nietzsche, was it Nietzsche? I'm just getting confused here a little bit, but anyway. Because what is without is within. And they knew that. As above, so below. The law of correspondence. The Hermetic law. One of the 7 laws. What is in the macrocosm is in the microcosm, you see. And so that's what it does, it converts. And of course when the sun, because it's not visible in outer space, in free space, when it hits the Earth's atmosphere, this is when the transformation begins. It transforms here at this level, you see, into a third thing. And how you would explain this in theology is the Father, the Son, the Father, the causal light, the Son, which has now manifested dualistic light, positive and negative ions, or positive and negative positively and negatively charged ions are coming from the sun, so it's positive and negative. Okay, it's vibrating, it's vibratory light, therefore it's dualistic, it's secondary light, it's force. Walter Russell says there's only one force that God uses to create everything that is visible in the universe, and that is electricity. And God is magnetism. You see? So here you see the magnetism at the cause of the sun, where everything must return. Everything is born from here, according to Walter Russell. Everything must be returned through that portal, back to cause. And so this electric light is secondary force. And that force, when it hits here, this is the Holy Spirit stage. This is theology. The Father is the unnamed. The Son is the S-U-N/S-O-N, because it's electric, L. And the Virgin shall give a child, and his name will be Emmanuel. And then this is the Holy Spirit. This is explained by many biblical astrologers. The Reverend Thomas Taylor in 1830 explained that this is the Holy Spirit. He was from Birmingham. And because we breathe in here, this is the womb, this is earth, this is mother, this is father, matter, material, M, L. So here you have, the positive forces of nature here expressed. Here you have negative. But this is our home, the womb, in which one day experience apotheosis as a grub becomes a butterfly, and this is called metamorphosis. We have apotheosis. Apo, from, theosis. The Italian genius Pier Luigi Igina, he said that in the centre of the sun is a heart that beats at the same rate as our heart. You can see him speaking about this on YouTube. Pier Luigi Igina. Igina is spelled I-G-H-I-N-A. And it's worth listening to him. He spent 10 years with Marconi. And then after that he studied the sun for 30 years. He has a seismic... he invented a machine which penetrates the crust of the earth, and it's like a valve, and it releases the gas from the crust of the earth, and hence he has prevented earthquakes. It's anti-seismic machine. You can see that on YouTube too. He modifies the weather. He does an experiment on YouTube, and he manifests the clouds. You can see it, and then the clouds go away. And this little old gentleman, Pier Luigi, died about 15 years ago. He explains that he studied the sun for 30 years, and he said that the sun emits what he calls positive atom. Or is it negative? No, it's positive. Okay. When it hits the atmosphere, and he said the earth emanates a closing energy, negative, and the sun is emanating an expanding energy. And from the centre of the sun is a heart which is beating at the same rate of ours, which would be 72 beats a minute, on average. And so we see we have the hollow sun. We have a sun which at its centre has a 0 point of magnetic light. It's its own central sun. Of course, all the mythologies talk about the sun behind the sun behind the sun. There's always a physical one that you see, a psychic one, and a spiritual. That's why Mithras is always seen as two, because they keep it simple. It's a spiritual and a physical sun. It's always known that the ancients didn't just worship an orb that they thought was inanimate. They worship light. God is light. The scriptures tell you. And so they looked at these beautiful orbs as secondary images, if you like, that represent the beautiful magnetic light, which is who we really are. And hence Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Because the Father is in reference to still light. Because if you've seen vibrating light, well, you know that that's the thinking light which comes from the knowing light, of course. And so let us proceed and see if we can follow the sun along the ecliptic. There's the ecliptic. This particular map shows the ecliptic starting over here, and they've put Aries in here. Can we get a better focus on that? I suppose we can. Right. So, and that's probably more natural than the maps that I use. I usually tend to